Okay, so welcome everybody. My name is Martha Carshare. I'm co-chair of Our Revolution Massachusetts. We're really excited to present our forum on the first 11th Suffolk House Representative Candidates Forum. Y voy a explicar que se puede buscar traducción en español. Hay un botón abajo en el screen y si uno lo aprieta, hay una opción de escuchar el programa en español. Si hay problemas, por favor, ponlo en el chat y podremos ayudarle. And so, again, welcome Chelsea and Everett residents, and welcome to our co-sponsors, La Colaborativa, Green Roots, and all 4 of Chelsea's Democratic wards to the first redistricted 11th Suffolk State House Representative Candidate Forum. And welcome to the candidates. In addition, I want to thank the CBC, the Chelsea Black community, and President Joan Cromwell for her outreach, as well in sharing the flyer, inviting people. Again, my name is Martha Carshare. I am co-chair of Our Revolution Massachusetts, a statewide organization of people who have supported Bernie Sanders and his platform since he first ran for president in 2016. Susan, if you could put up the slide for Our Revolution Massachusetts, our triangle, and you can see that the legs of this red, white, and blue triangle, which will come up in a minute, represent the goals of our revolution. Our first goal is to build a progressive party whose leadership includes more working class members and those who have been excluded by racism, sexism, ageism, and other forms of discrimination. Our second goal is to win on progressive policies. We embrace the progressive policies identified by Our Revolution and the Bernie campaign and prioritized by our grassroots membership. I think it's the second slide from the top. There we go. So there's our Revolution Massachusetts logo. Our second goal is the second leg of the triangle. We want to win on progressive policies. We embrace the progressive policies identified by Our Revolution and the Bernie campaign and prioritized by our grassroots membership. Our third goal is to elect progressive champions who are already office holders or candidates who run for office and demonstrate a commitment by continuing to build the movement and advocate for our priorities. To accomplish these goals, we support the organizing of local activists who lift up the voices of their community and do the work to bring about the changes we all want to see. Now I will turn the forum over to Chris Spears from the Blue Hills ORMA affiliate for our invocation. So it's just this there, it's the slide right above that one. Chris.
Oh, hello, thank you, Martha. We recognize that we meet this evening on lands taken from Indigenous people. We recognize that we live within the American capitalist system founded on slavery, a system that established a legacy of violence and selfish acquisition that includes mass shootings, racism, sexism, homophobia, support of oppressive foreign governments, and economic inequality. We stand with the working class in their rights to dignity, a living wage, and competitive benefits. Through forums like this one, we endeavor to educate the public on these complex issues by finding constructive solutions regarding a new way forward.
Thank you, Chris. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Zaida Ismatul Oliva, a longtime Chelsea resident, 33 years to be exact. She has worked in nonprofits and higher education for the past 20 years. Today, she serves as the executive director of Chica Project, a nonprofit that serves young women of color and empowers them with the skills, confidence, and network necessary to thrive personally and professionally. She was raised in Chelsea and feels that this community helped ignite her passion for social justice, leadership, education, and community empowerment. Zaida, take it away.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Thank you everyone for being here and for joining us tonight in such an important forum tonight. And we want to welcome everyone. I first want to make some acknowledgements. We want to thank the press for being so willing to be here today. And we want to thank Janet from El Planeta, who is here and joining us. I want to publicly thank Maximo Torres, who, while in Lima, Peru, shared the forum flyer and the details with El Mundo Boston. Both will be receiving the forum recordings in Spanish for write-ups in the press coverage. We also received a request for an English recording for the Bay State banner. So we're really proud of all the media coverage this important forum is getting. I also would like to acknowledge some folks in the room. I would like to acknowledge Chelsea City Councilor President Roy Avellaneda, Chelsea School Committee Chair Kelly Garcia, Chelsea School Committee Member of District 5, Kathy Cabral, and Chelsea School Committee Representative of District 4, Clarigelis Covas Carabello, and I'm so sorry I didn't mess up your name. And before I do jump into some housekeeping announcements, I do wanted to go on record that all candidates running for the 11th Suffolk State Representative seat, both Democrats and Republicans, were invited to be part of this forums. The ones present here today were the ones that agreed to participate. And now I'm going to jump into some housekeeping announcements. There is simultaneous translation. There is, as Martha mentioned earlier on, there is an interpretation button at the bottom of your screen where you can choose the language of Spanish if you want to hear this forum in Spanish. Therefore, I'm also going to talk a little bit slower so that the translator is able to capture all of our words and translate them. And so I also will allow for a pause in between so that there is some catch-up time. Meeting will be recorded in Spanish and English as mentioned and will be shared with the Chelsea Community Television. It would also be streamed tonight on Facebook. Panelists will be timed 1 minute for introductions, and they will have 90 seconds for answering the questions. If after 90 seconds, please know that they will be muted. We just have a time crunch, so we want to make sure that we stay with the time. Questions can be asked in the chat. We have a chat monitor. If we do not, because of the forum just is so lively and the conversation is just fantastic, if we don't get to the questions, we make sure that we do share the questions with the candidates and make sure that we share them with the group that's here today and registered. All right, and there is a stopwatch on our Revolution. I want to make sure that I'm giving you the correct. Our Revolution screen, there is a stopwatch. It's not that big, but it's small, but you can keep your time check there. And I will also remind you when there's 30 seconds left so that you know exactly where you are with your time. And so let's begin after we have done that housekeeping announcements. And I also would like to thank all of our candidates here tonight. To begin our question and answer period, we will ask each panelist to please give a 1-minute introduction. We will take turns. We will start with Leo, Judith, and Robert. I want to make sure that Leo is here before I begin. Leo Robinson?
I'm here.
Fantastic, awesome. So I have you as the first person to introduce yourself. Leo Robinson is currently City Councilor at Large and has been serving in public service. Leo, please give us 1-minute introduction.
Okay, as you said, my name is Leo Robinson. It is with great pride and honor that I enter this race seeking to represent the lifelong hometown of Chelsea. I have dedicated my entire life to service and community, and I believe that the unique opportunity will allow me to continue to give back to the place I love to call home. Our next state representative needs to know the unique challenges facing the district and have the experience and relationships necessary to deliver the results we so desperately need. For those of you who don't know me or my story, I am a lifelong Chelsea resident. After graduating Chelsea High School in 1968, I attended Burdett College. I also served the United States Army during the Vietnam War, and upon my return to the United States, launched my career as a public servant. I started coaching basketball at Chelsea Youth League. I was elected a two-term alderman at large. I served on the Community Development Board. I was also a housing commissioner. I'm very proud that I wrote the ordinance on inclusionary zoning to make sure that we were going to have affordable housing. And another project I'm proud to have worked on was the Central Avenue project with the Chelsea Housing Authority and the Cochrane Group, which represents 96 Chelsea Housing Authority residents, 40 workforce development units, and 130 market rate units. I coached 13 years over at Port John. I was on the Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you for your introduction. Next, we will have Judith Garcia. Judith Garcia is District 5, Chelsea City Councilor, and has been serving there for 7 years. Judith, please give us 1 minute introduction.
Thank you very much, and briefly, thank you for hosting this very important event. So everyone, my name is Judith Garcia. I am a proud daughter of a single mom, a proud daughter of a first-generation immigrant, and a proud daughter of an essential worker. Similar to many of the constituencies that I serve, I love to say that I am a daughter of Chelsea. I attended Chelsea Public Schools, and when I graduated from high school, I moved on to college with the promise that I would return to this community to give to the community that gave me so much. This community gave me a home, it gave me purpose, it gave me belonging. And in 2015, when I saw the lack of representation in our council of representatives that looked like us and that really understood the needs of our community, I decided to run for office in partnership with this community, where we were able to pass progressive legislation. I am proud of the work that I've done, from wage theft ordinance to making sure that we invested over $5 million in our downtown and improve our infrastructure. To
Judith, you muted yourself.
Oh, did you hear me?
We just missed the last part.
Okay, so I'm very proud of my track record as a city councilor, and I look forward to representing everyone here, either Chelsea and Everett at the state level, continuing to do the progressive legislation that we've done.
Thank you, Judith. Thank you so much for your introduction. Next, we have Roberto Jimenez Rivera. Is currently serves as the Chelsea School Committee at large. Roberto, can you please give us your 1 minute introduction?
Thank you to everyone who put this forum together. My name is Roberto Jimenez Rivera, and I'm a member of the Chelsea School Committee and a union organizer. But above all, I'm the dad of a 2-year-old boy who keeps me motivated to build a better future for all of us. My wife and I chose Chelsea because we wanted a community where our kids could grow up hearing Spanish on the street and live out the values that are important to us. What was ridiculous is that in order for us to have that, we would have to give up on having schools with enough resources, green spaces for our baby to run through, and clean air to breathe. I don't think anybody should have to make those kinds of sacrifices, and it was that thought that brought me to politics. So this year, I'm running for state rep because we need legislators who have experience getting legislation passed at the state house. I want to bring the people of our district with me and then partner with regional and statewide allies to finally make sure that Chelsea isn't forgotten. When the politicians who have been there for years and years toss us to the side, I come back with more people to make sure that we win. My experience doing that has prepared me to be our best advocate, and that's why I'm here today asking for your vote for state representative. Thank you so much.
Thank you, candidates, and thank you for being here. Before we move on, I just want to do a couple of more acknowledgements of the room. We would like to also acknowledge Councilor at Large Damali Vito, who is here supporting. Chelsea's Council District 3, Councilor Norielis de Jesus. And I have to correct I did not say her name correctly. So Chelsea School Committee Representative of District 4, Claria Angelis Covas Caraballo, and Catherine Cabral, who is District 5 for School Committee as well. And if there are other representatives or other media, please let us know that you're here so that we can acknowledge you. Well, thank you so much. We're going to move on. And in order for us to just, you don't hear my voice all night, we have a dynamic forum today, and we have invited two community members, Taylor Garr and Mara Garrity, are longtime Chelsea residents and community organizers, and will take turns asking questions of the panelists. The order of answering will rotate. Each candidate will receive 1.5 minutes to answer. As a reminder, after the 1.5 minutes, you will be muted. There is a timer on the upper right-hand corner of our Revolution screen, or is it Michael at this point? Yep, our Revolution. There's a tiny little timer, but I will do the best to try to give a reminder if we're running out of time. And with further ado, please, let's get to ask the questions.
Good evening. My name is Mara Garrity, and I am going to be asking the first question. And the order is going to be Judith, Roberto, then Leo. And the question is, housing affordability is critical in Chelsea. What are your top policy priorities for addressing this problem and why? And Judith would be the first.
Yes, absolutely. So honestly, housing affordability has reached a breaking point for our renters. And it's no secret that over 70% of our community members here in Chelsea are renters. And what I think is priority as we face this regional and countrywide crisis is we need to focus a lot on rent stabilization being priority, but also stronger tenant protections. When I think about what are some of those key pieces of legislation that we should be pushing out there, are legislations like the Homes Act, like the right to counsel, the fact that our poor tenants have to carry for years an eviction record that stops them from reaching stable homes. It's a vicious cycle that needs to stop. And I know that leaders and organizers throughout the state, including La Colaborativa, have really been pushing this. And currently Senator Lydia Edwards is pushing for this to happen. But if this doesn't happen, it's been stagnant since 2017. We need to make sure that we push these measures to ensure that we stop this vicious cycle, because it's affecting our children, it's affecting our families, and we need stable homes to be able to create thriving communities. On the other hand, right to counsel is another important measure that I think is incredibly important. It's unfair that many of our tenants are being sent out to court without the proper representation. So I think that in order to...
I'm sorry, Judith, we need to move on, but thank you so much for your answer.
It's Mia.
Next in line would be Roberto.
All right, yeah, so I like the counselor said, I think housing affordability is a huge problem in our community, with over 70% of folks in the community being renters, especially. So I really see it as a two-part problem, right? I think it's a problem of supply and it's a problem of price. The first thing in supply, we keep building more buildings, but they tend to be a lot of luxury condos that are not actually affordable to the people who are in our community. So I think we're continuing to bring more people into our community while still having a housing crisis with the people who are here. So I think that we need to make sure that we're also building more middle income and lower working class family housing, and also making sure that communities that are not Chelsea are actually doing their fair share of affordable housing development. Because right now we are doing far more than our fair share in terms of our affordable housing, and that has a cost, right? We end up having to lower property tax revenue and that kind of thing. So we should have, the state should be making up for that, the fact that we are taking on more than our fair share. Now, in terms of the price, right, it is too costly to buy a home and it is too costly to rent. So the first thing that we should do is protect our tenants by giving tenants the opportunity to purchase a home. Especially if somebody has been there for 20 plus years, they should be able to buy a home if their landlord decides to sell that house. We should expand tenant organizing, and rent control does not mean that you can never raise rent. It just means that it cannot be $700 from one year to another. And if people can afford a $3,000 rent check, they can afford a mortgage that is $2,500. So we should be making it more accessible for people to purchase a home in the community that they've been living in.
Thank you, Roberto. Leo? Candidate Leo Robinson?
You might need to unmute, Leo.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, actually, I addressed it by doing inclusionary zoning. I think one of the things that we need to do is around education. And the fact of the matter, how important housing is to us. I think one of the mechanisms we kind of overlooked at, we need to be able to advocate at the state level in regards to rental assistance and put more money into rental assistance and being able to help people survive in their units and work their way to the first-time home buyers program through Chelsea Restoration that will enable our residents to be able to purchase homes. By taking the first-time home buyers, you'll be educated as to how much home you would be able to purchase, which will be able to help you develop some wealth. I think it's important that we as a community come together and advocate for housing as a priority, not only within Chelsea, but in the region. And as we are over the limit as to how much affordable housing we do have here in Chelsea compared to the 10% in other communities.
Thank you, Leo. And now we'll move on to our second question of the night, and Taylor will ask the question.
Hi, I'm Taylor Garr. So in communities like Chelsea around the country, ideas and efforts are blossoming around topics of restorative justice and shifting certain resources and responsibilities from police departments to other stakeholders. So what policies do you think are most important for ensuring the safety of Chelsea residents while addressing rather than exacerbating the problem of mass incarceration? And the order for this question is going to be Roberto, then Leo, then Judith.
Thank you for that question. And, you know, like you said, having teams of people who are unarmed, who are trained in de-escalation, who are social workers, I think is crucial to improving the public safety in our communities. And, you know, I just want to say, I think the Chelsea Police Department does a much better job than almost any other community that I've seen. So I don't want to minimize the work that they have been doing. But I think anytime that you insert a gun into a situation, that gun escalates the situation most of the time, regardless of what the officer is doing. You know, they might be doing everything well, right? But the fact that there's a weapon just creates stress in the people who are involved in the situation, especially as we've seen more and more situations happen on social media over the last few years. So I definitely would support that. And I'm proud to count on the support of the National Association of Social Workers because they also believe in this type of work and this type of intervention system. In addition to that, I think we also need to treat our minors as underage until the age of 21 to make sure that we are not continuing to push people into the school to prison pipeline and into our prison system so that we can actually, you know, people's brains aren't fully developed until they are 21. So we should definitely make sure that we are treating people to the level that they're at. Two more things. I think that while people are in prison, we need to make sure that they are remaining connected to their communities. So no cost calls and making sure that they have enough visitation times and ending solitary confinement. And then once they are out, I think we need to support people getting jobs. I want to shout out really quickly the job that Roca has been doing for many, many years, because we need more of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. And now we'll move on to Judith. No, I'm sorry, Leo.
Leo.
I'm sorry, Judith.
police department for the job that they do. Years ago, the city of Chelsea was ahead of the curve with Mass General doing a program where the doctors rode around with the police at nighttime to address some of the concerns in our neighborhoods as domestic violence. There would be social workers that would be with them to address those issues. I think it's very important that we educate our youth along with other community members, how important it is to be on the right side of the law and pay attention to creating programs to benefit our youth. And I think one of the things we need to address is job creation. I know that we're doing a lot around workforce development, but we need to be able to work with our kids, give them a skill to be able to get trained so that they would be able to move on to the next station in life.
Thank you, Leo. And now Judith.
Okay, wonderful. So, I will say this, it's important to really not lose sight of the work that Chelsea has done collaboratively with different organizations. I think it's important, it's a critical time right now, an urgent time right now to really focus on our reaction response to violence, but also to really take a clear focus on our youth. We have a police force department that has really significantly made strides to keep our community safe, to work in cohesion with our community. We've developed what's called the Hub Task Force, which meets on a monthly basis to really tackle a lot of these issues from the very beginning. I know that one of my colleagues, one of the candidates here, made mention to ROCA and the critical work that they do with the youth by giving them second chances. And I think that's the sort of work ethic that we need to continue, and those sort of role models that we need to continue to establish, because we cannot continue to penalize their youth. What we need to be doing is providing opportunity, youth development opportunities, jobs, summer jobs. It's critical that kids from the ages of 14 to 20, there's not a lot of opportunities for them to be doing things. And I think that's where our focus and our investment should be at.
Thank you, Judith. And now we will move on to question number 3. And Mara will ask question number 3. Just to remind candidates, the order will be Leo, Judith, and Roberto.
Chelsea has historically been underserved by public transit, and it's one of the hardest hit communities in the Commonwealth when it comes to environmental justice. What are your priorities for improving public transportation in the district, particularly with an eye towards reducing environmental burden shouldered by this community?
First candidate would be Leo.
Leo, you might be on mute.
All right, I'm muted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. As I said, I work with the state in regards to addressing the issues and concerns around transportation. Yes, now, even though we have the silver line, the purple line, the 111 and the buses that go to Maverick, we need to improve those services and find ways that we needed to take a look at reducing the fares for people in our community who basically need transportation to be able to provide the goods and resources that we as a community provide for the rest of the state. As we all know that all the produce center is here, and it gives us great opportunity to be able to utilize public transportation to get back and forth, not only to work, but to be able to go into the theater or be able to go into sporting events like baseball or basketball for the enjoyment of our youth and our community.
Thank you, Leo. Now it would be Judith.
Unmute me. Beautiful. So, very quickly, given the limited amount of time that we have, I am personally a person who doesn't even own a car. So I know specifically the needs of this community in terms of public transit. Over 80% of our population depends heavily on public transit to get to their jobs, to get to schools, and to get to their medical appointments. And I honestly am proud to say that I spearheaded a council resolution to support the Fair Share Amendment. So I know that the funds are there to ensure that we have free fare transit. That's what our communities need right now. We need to expand our routes. We need to be able to, by expanding the routes and providing free fare transit, we will create more job opportunities for our community members. So I'm a big believer that we need to be pushing the MBTA to create better conditions for our riders.
Thank you, Judith. And last, Roberto.
Thank you. I believe that public transit is a public good, and I think that we should be doing everything in our power to improve our public transit, update, upgrade, expand our public transit, and make sure that as we're doing it, we are creating good union jobs that will help our community. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the Boston Carmen's Union, the MBTA drivers, and all their folks. Proud to have their support. And I want to thank the Councilwoman for bringing up the Fair Share Amendment. I am proud to be on the Fair Share Coalition, doing the work to make sure that we pass that ballot question this year. I spearheaded the resolution at the school committee, and I brought it to the city council, and I was grateful to work with the councilwoman to make sure that got passed at the city council as well. But there are two things that I want to make sure that we do in terms of our public transit. We need to catch up on maintenance. We are billions of dollars behind on maintenance, and that means that trains and buses are not as reliable as they could be. And also, we can't have trains catching on fire. That's just not something that should happen in a civilized society that has as many resources as we have. So we need to be catching up on our maintenance. And then the next thing that we need to do is work on big projects that are going to help us solve a lot of different issues. We might even be able to ease a lot of the pressures from the housing crisis because of expanding to new communities. So connecting the red line and the blue line to make sure that our workers can get to Cambridge and Somerville, instead of taking an hour, it could take them like far less. Connecting North and South Rail to make sure that people can get to their jobs in the South Shore, and East-West Rail to make sure that more communities can be connected, and both for jobs out there and for people coming into the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. And in order to break things up a little bit, we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to do something that's called a rapid fire question round. This is where we're going to ask all the candidates one question, and they're going to agree or disagree with the question. They agree by putting their thumbs up, or they disagree by putting their thumbs down. Leo, since you have your camera off, I would suggest that you come off mute and you just say a yes or a no so that you can participate in this round. And I will start the questions. Do you support rent control?
Yes.
Do you support non-resident municipal voting?
No.
Do you support state subsidized free public transportation for low-income communities like Chelsea?
Yes.
Do you support government-supported healthcare, which includes services for vision, hearing, and long-term care without deductibles and copays?
Yes.
Do you support a developer tax real estate transfer fee?
Yes.
Chelsea carries well above the average amount of affordable housing in the state. Would you support a bill to require other communities to increase the quantity of their affordable housing?
Yes.
Will you support expansion of two-way bilingual education in Chelsea and Everett schools?
Yes.
The Mass House of Representatives recently voted to exempt a prime piece of real estate along Everett's waterfront from state law that preserves waterfront access for the public without public notice or comment. Would you have voted with the House?
No.
Do you want to go on record on this one, Judith? Yes. The Mass House of Representatives recently voted to exempt a prime piece of real estate along Everett's waterfront from state law that preserves the waterfront access for the public without public notice or comment. would you have voted with the House?
No, if you're talking to me, no.
No, Leo, I was talking to Judith.
Okay.
Fantastic. And that wraps out our rapid fire question round. Thank you so much for participating in that round. And now we will move on to the same format of asking questions, and Taylor will take the next question. And the order will be Judith, Roberto, and Leo.
Thanks, Zeta. So as you know, many people in Chelsea work 2 or 3 jobs, in many cases without benefits. This lack of a safety net was exposed during COVID when essential workers were required to go to work and did not have, in some cases, sick leave when they got COVID. What policies do you support to make this situation better? And again, that order is Judith, Roberto, Leo.
I would say
We might have lost Judith, so if we want to jump into Roberto so we can maximize some time, and then when she comes on, we'll rotate.
Sure, happy to go. So I think, you know, I'm a union organizer, right? So to me, one of the most important things that we can do to make sure that we're expanding, improving people's working conditions and work is make sure that we are empowering people to join a union and work together to fight the employer to make sure that they are getting better pay and better working conditions. Union rates have been dropping for decades, and that's how we combat it. We should make sure that union dues are tax deductible to incentivize people to actually join a union. Now, in addition to that, I also think that we keep fighting to expand the minimum wage, right? To increase the minimum wage. We've been fighting for 15, it's still not at 15, right? Because of inflation, we should be fighting for 20, and some people are. And I think that we need to peg the minimum wage to inflation so that we can move on from this fight, and that way we will have a stable minimum wage as time goes on, and then we can actually put our energy into improving things like making sure that workers' schedules are actually consistent, and that people can't just get sent home because there's not enough customers coming in. That's not the workers' problem. The workers trying to make ends meet in their house. So we should make sure that people are protected in the schedule that they're working. I am proud to be a union organizer. I'm proud to have the support and the endorsement of 7 different unions, more than all of my opponents combined. And we should be making sure that also that we are passing the wage theft ordinance, which our Senator Saldi Domenico has been pushing for many, many years, to make sure that when you go to work, you are actually able to get the money that you are owed, instead of having to fight legal battles to get the money that you should have been paid in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. And I believe Judith is back. So I would like to honor giving her her time is back.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. So it was many people in Chelsea work 2 or 3 jobs without benefits. This lack of a safety net was exposed during COVID when essential workers were required to go to work and did not have sick leave when they got COVID. What policies do you support to make this situation better?
Yes, so as one of my colleagues just alluded, I think that one of the key policies that it's about time that we do push is the wage theft ordinance. I am proud to say that as a city councilor, that was one of the first things we passed back in 2015, and we were actually the first council to do so. So I believe strongly that we need to provide better working conditions for our working class families. And we need to do that by making sure that people are not being robbed of their salaries, but also we need to make sure that the conditions that they work in are safe ones with all the protections that they need. With universal childcare, we know that 50% of our labor force are women, and we need to create positions of work that allow them to really thrive in the work environment. So these are some of the key initiatives, but if I were to shoot one, it would definitely be pushing wage theft.
Thank you, Judith. And now we'll hear from Leo.
Being a former union member of Local 25, I understand the struggles of all workers. I think it's important that we allow people to get organized, to create a strong working environment by being able to have the opportunity to join unions. I think my colleague Roy Avellaneda was the first one to address the wage theft on the city council. And I think it's important that we follow up to make sure that we're advocating for workers to make sure that they're getting their just due, that they're not being cheated out of their wages and not being able to have the opportunity to join unions. So I think it's very important that we keep our eye on the ball and make sure that nobody interferes with our workers being able to unionize. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will move on to our next question. Maura?
The order for this one is Roberto, Leo, and Judith. Federal and state organizations are located within the city of Chelsea performing essential government functions. These agencies do not pay taxes, but in some instances make in lieu of tax payments to Chelsea. For example, Massport pays Chelsea an annual payment of $600,000 for Logan Airport. Mass DOT pays an annual payment of $500,000 for the Tobin Bridge, and so on. Do you believe that these payments are keeping pace to cover the problems and issues such as quality of life and health concerns that these agencies create in our city? What would you do to ensure agencies communicate, cooperate, and compensate the city? And again, the order is Roberto, Leo, and Judith.
Since I just went first, should we flip it?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, you addressing me first?
I think Judith should go first.
Okay.
Roberto, Leo, and Judith.
Okay, sure. I can go first. So I think that, you know, organizations like MassDOT, Massport, they make a lot of decisions that harm our community, right? On top of the harm that's already there that this pilot is supposed to make up for, right? So MassDOT just dumped a huge pile of asbestos in our community just a couple of months ago. It was sitting there for 3 months and nobody knew. If it hadn't been for an investigative reporter, we wouldn't have known about this. And it took another month to get that off. So do I think that what they're paying to our community to make up for what we're losing is enough? Absolutely not. I think that, you know, we need to actually find a way to capture the actual cost to our communities. The Tobin Bridge was built over, you know, hundreds of housing units that the city lost in terms of property tax revenue that we are now having to make up for in order to provide supports to the people in the city. So I think we should find a way to capture the overall cost, and also make sure that as things like the asbestos site happen, to make sure that we are actually holding our state agencies accountable, so they will actually cover the cost of their mistakes. You know, it took Green Roots hosting a forum with MassDOT and us asking them, will you commit to paying for the testing that we had to do to make sure that your testing that you're doing was actually accurate, for them to agree to do it. And now we're still having to ask for them to give us the money. You know, it should be easier.
Thank you, Roberto.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Leo.
Yeah, the amount of money that we get from them is not enough money to come into our community. I think also we need to take a look at those nonprofits who are developing housing here in Chelsea, you know, not really giving us a proper return on what they're earning, which also has an effect on our community. You know, the fact of the matter is, you know, we are not a dumping ground, and we shouldn't be sitting back and allowing for things like, you know, the asbestos that was dumped here to take place. And years ago, they used to come in late at night and do those types of things. But as a community, we are much more aware of our surroundings and what is happening in our neighborhood as compared to years ago. And I think it's important that we look at the whole picture. You know, and those who need to be paying their fair share of taxes should be paying their taxes and helping our community to improve. Thank you.
Judith?
Yeah, I think it's been said very clear here. We need to hold corporations and polluters accountable for what they're doing and what they're bringing to our community and the harm that they're causing. But I think let's take it an extent more. You know, we shouldn't be asking them to mitigate a crisis after the crisis has happened. I think we need to be more proactive in terms of our ask and make sure that before they choose to make Chelsea their home, that they're paying their fair share and that they're giving to this community as much as they want to be here. So that's my short answer on this big topic.
Thank you, candidates. And that wraps up our portion of the question answer for the candidates. And now we would like to do a chat check. We do have some questions from in the chat from different folks, and we will start off with Judith answering the question, then will be Leo, and then will be Roberto. The first question comes from Jimmy Merino. As Chelsea is one of the least funded cities in Massachusetts. There has been a teacher shortage and inadequate budgeting in recent months. How will you push for more funding for Chelsea that supports the community?
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy. That's a wonderful question. I know he's been a leader as a youth organizer, so it means a lot that you continue to advocate. You know, I can say that in my track record as a city councilor, I was at the forefront when this community was hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic, making sure that we got our fair share from our ARPA funds. And right now that I'm heading to hopefully become your next state representative, I will make sure that I advocate for more community investments in terms of programming, in terms of youth development specifically, because as I said before, there's an age group between the ages of 14 and 20 that continue to not have as many opportunities as they should have. We continue to hear in our council meetings that we need a recreational center, more youth programming, more opportunities for them to be stabilized, because many of our youth are providers for their families. So for me, it's going to be very critical that we ensure that as these ARPA funds continue to be funneled and as much federal funding continues to be funneled, that we make sure that we target communities like Everett and communities like Chelsea.
Yeah. Now would be Leo.
As my wife was an administrator, my daughter was a teacher. And the fact of the matter is, City Council over the previous years have stepped up to make sure that we were able to give a boost of $5 million to the schools when they were short funded. And actually right now, there's been a lot of money that's been contributed to the school department, where they're in excess of hiring well over 50 new administrators or teachers in the system to help improve our system and being able to teach our kids in a better manner than what we've had in the past. And I think my hand goes out to the administration that has brought the school to, I think, to another level. And I think they're continuing to make the school system grow here within the city of Chelsea. And we're having our kids go on to 4-year schools and 2-year schools. And as a city council, we've appropriated money so that kids could be able to get an education at Bunker Hill Community College, that they'll be able to save some money and then transfer to a 4-year school. Thank you.
Thank you. And Roberto?
So I'm really grateful for the work that the City Council has done to support our schools, but unfortunately, Chelsea does not have the resources to fund our schools at the level that we need. And that's something that's been proven, and it's why state law works the way that it does. Most of our revenues for our schools comes from the state. And so for 15 years, the formula for funding our schools was broken. So every year we had less money to actually be able to do the things that we had to do. So we had to slash budgets, we had to cut teachers and cut programs, and it was terrible. So for many years, people were advocating to fix this formula. And in 2019, I was part of a coalition that had been pushing for a number of years, and we passed the Student Opportunity Act. Since then, we have been actually getting more millions of dollars to restore a lot of the things that we had cut. The first year, the pandemic started. Unfortunately, the funding was put on the chopping block automatically because the pandemic was going on and it was too hard. So our legislators decided that, even though we needed the money even more than before, we were not going to get those additional funds. So I actually organized, I wrote a letter, I got 130 leaders from across our state, city councilors, school committee members, union leaders, superintendents from over 26 cities across the state. And we actually pushed to get that money back. And we actually got the money back on track to the final funding, which needs to be in by 2027. So we are seeing increasing monies until then. We need to make sure that we're continuing with that funding. We need to expand our educator pipeline. It's increasingly difficult to become a teacher. You're saddled with that. So I would make sure that we have free higher education for everybody, but in particular for people who want to become educators. And also we should be expanding vocational education and making sure that it's fair for everybody to access it. Sorry, I'm out of time.
Thank you so much, Roberto. That was wonderful. We do have other questions in the chat, but we are running up on our time and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So what we will do is we will compile the questions, we will share them with the candidates, and we will make sure that we shoot those answers back out to everyone who registered for this forum today so that you can hear from the candidates on these particular topics. And that wraps up our Q&A. Let's check in with we already checked in with our monitors. So now we are going to move on to the closing. We want to thank all of the candidates for making time to be here today. This is a very important seat for Chelsea. It's our new seat, and we really want our representation to be the representation of this community. So we want to thank you all for being here today. And please remember the primary elections are on Tuesday, September 6th, but please go out and vote for your candidate of choice. And now we're going to give every candidate 30 seconds to tell the community what you want to do while you are in the seat, if you are lucky enough. And we will start with Roberto. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to change the stem because you've gone first a couple of times and I acknowledge that. So let's start off with Judith.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for the time. As you know, it's a historic moment for Chelsea, and we have the unique opportunity to send someone out there that really understands and empathizes with the needs of our community. It's not about only uplifting voices, but it's actually about getting the work done. Personally, I've had 7 years legislating and doing the progressive work with proven results. I look forward to counting with your support because it's not about me, it's not about my family. It's about our community. It's about us, and we need a leader that unites us and not divides us. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. And now we will have Leo.
Yes, I will be advocating for around all housing issues. I'll be advocating about education, and I'll be advocating to make sure that Chelsea receives its fair share of any monies that are due to all communities, but Chelsea being number one to make sure that Chelsea and Everett get their due to address the local needs that we need about addressing transportation, about housing, and about education. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. And now Roberto.
I hope you've gotten to know me a little bit better today. Unions, environmental organizations, and many, many more organizations have endorsed us because they know the type of work that I do. And that's why we also have a lot of local endorsers. I'm out there knocking doors every day, asking people what they care about. So if we haven't had the opportunity to speak, please reach out and I'll give you a call. If you've already decided that I'm the candidate, please pitch in a few dollars or a few hours of your time to make sure that we reach every last voter. To reach out or to support, please go to electroberto.org. But above all, I humbly ask for your vote for state representative on September 6th. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, candidates, for closing us out with your last plea for a vote. And now I'm going to turn it to Ward 1 Chair and City Councilor Damali Vido, who is going to close us out tonight.
Thank you, Zeta. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to thank ORMA. I wanted to thank all 4 wards and the Democratic committees here in Chelsea, the Chelsea Black community, Green Roots, the La Colaborativa, and all the candidates for being here today. This is a very important seat. We don't always agree on everything, but it's so important that when something like this happens, that we create the space to be able to share our opinions. When ORMA asked to organize with us, we had an issue with translation. And so they didn't have the mechanism. So we pushed, and they went and they got the resources and they figured out how to have simultaneous translation because language justice is important and we need to make sure that we're censoring the people in our community. So we learn from each other in these spaces, when we push each other, when we get to know each other, when we question each other. And I believe wholeheartedly, I know the work of all of these three candidates, and I believe wholeheartedly that we're gonna end up with great representation at the end of this. It's the first time in a long time I see all 4 ward chairs working together. And I hope this is the beginning of something much bigger as we continue to get people civically engaged and make sure that we're representing our community. So thank you, Zeta, for facilitating us. Thank you, Susan, for hosting the chat room, Taylor, Orma, all 4 wards, community members, electeds for being here. Chelsea is better for all of us being here and organizing together. And I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you all for entertaining us today. And I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, candidates, and best of luck. We had at one point 56 people here who really want to get to know you and who are ready to vote. So that was wonderful. I really want to give everyone kudos. And have a great night, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As a reminder, we will be following up with the questions and we'll be